Hi, everyone. My name is John Vincent, and I wanted to, with the help of my team, start a podcast, which I never thought I would be doing, about the positivity in this world. And as I've gotten older, I've come across people through my career, through my widening of knowing people and everything like that, that really affect me in my life in a positive way. And I probably have about 10 of them that are very, very important to me. And the gentleman I have today to start this podcast, which is called What's Good with John Vincent, is a brother and I have to say a mentor to me. And it's Angels manager, Joe Maddon. I love him. He's given me so much wisdom. We're going to talk about some stories that he's done for me that's changed my life. But I would just like to welcome Joe to the show.
Fratello de mio.
Fratello, Fratello
Hi,
mio, which is my
hi,
brother in Italian. Yes,
how you
you
doing,
are.
buddy? Good to see you. I'm very happy for you. Best wishes with your new endeavor. I think it's awesome. You're perfect for this, and I really appreciate you asking me out here.
Well, Joe, I worked for Coach Ditka for 20 years. And we've talked about this before, especially when I sang in the World Series. I got very nervous. You're smiling, you can see, like, I got very, very nervous very fast. It was all wild to me.
We all do. World
We
Series,
all
brother.
do.
Yeah, yeah.
But you don't, I don't think if you do, it doesn't show. And I remember the story before game 6 when I was so nervous and you calmed me down before I went to sing. And I just thought to myself, this guy is unbelievable. He's going into the World Series. It's game 6 against the Dodgers. And Joe Maddon calms down me. And after I sang, after I got out of that moment of this surrealness, I sat back in my seats, watched the game. But I thought for a while about how calm you were. And I was like, there is something, an aura around you that the way you are. And I call you Joe Cool to people. They're like, well, how's Joe Maddon? How is he as a person? I go, he is Joe Cool. And how would you describe yourself first and foremost? I described you that way, but how would you describe yourself?
I'd like to believe that I'm a present tense guy. I think the only way to really be able to be how you're describing is that if you are able to process the moment as it occurs. The great line that I read years ago is that anxiety lives in the future. So if you're constantly in advance and worrying about what's going to go wrong, yeah, then you're going to be nervous or upset. And believe me, I get to that point myself at different times. But when you teach yourself to stay more centered in the moment and then just permit that next moment to take care of itself. After all, that's once we get over the nervousness and you started singing, or and as a player, I'd start in the batter's box or behind the center. The moment you get to that point, then the nervousness dissipates. But it's just about the anxiousness that you're anticipating in the future. So anxiety lives in the future. If you could stay grounded and stay centered, not it's easier said than done, and a lot of that has to do with meditation. A lot of that has to do with preparation, self-confidence. I mean, things like that all play into it. But at the end of the day, man, if you could teach yourself to be present tense, it really helps a lot.
Do you remember when you picked me up in Hazleton? You have the Delta, the 77, correct?
Yeah.
We're driving in there, and you show me where you were brought up, where you were born and raised. We go there. You show me where you played wiffle ball, and if it hit the rocks, that was a home run and everything.
Yeah, right.
We went to your cousin's diner, and I knew that there was this connection with this blue collar. I grew up on the south side of Chicago. My dad was a security guard. We had this very close, tight-knit family. And I saw how you were the same way. But there was a difference. Like a lot of times with older generations, like my father and either Coach Ditka, they say the same thing you do, but it didn't register me as well, because Coach would say, yesterday's a history, tomorrow's a mystery, today's a gift. That was why they called it the present. And Coach is always full, go forward. And that's my father. You have it with a different way. It's said the same way, and it's said with a very, like you said, present mindfulness. And I remember you were talking to me about Dr. Wayne Dyer, correct?
Yeah, Wayne Dyer. Yes.
Sorry for mispronouncing the name. And I was talking about Eckhart Tolle in the book The Power of Now, where he says there's no such thing as the past. There's no such thing as the future. Every time we experience something, it's today. It's this moment. And I try to do that, but I get myself out of it so many times because I suffer from obsessive compulsive disorder. And I know meditation has helped, and I've learned that from you. When did that change happen in your life? Were you always this way, or when did it change?
When it came to athletics, I think I've always been this way. In your personal life, as a young kid, having acne in ninth grade, eighth grade, you lose a lot of your self-esteem at that point. Meeting girls for the first time. When you leave home, I mean, like you saw where I came from, really sheltered in a sense. I never slept in another bed except my own. Whenever I went somewhere, God, I couldn't wait to get home. So the idea or the thought of going to college and living away from home was really terrifying. But on the field, I was good. Whether it was a baseball field, a football field, a basketball court, there was a comfort level there because I felt like I was the best. You have to feel that way, and you feel like you're going to win. So it's a combination of feeling really self-confident in your abilities, and believe me, even when you're young, like or a professional now, yeah, you want to do well. Yes, you want to put up good numbers. Yes, yes, yes. But the overarching factor has always got to be that you want to win. So with me, it was on the field or on a court, whatever. I felt we were going to win, and I felt that I was going to do well. So there's a lot of confidence there. Then off of that, it took me a while to really gain my self confidence in me, find a voice so that I can project out there what I thought comfortably. Because you're always worried about what people are going to say or think, and you might hesitate because of that. You're uncertain. Am I saying the right thing? All these different crazy things that we go through till you get to the point where you find your voice, you know what you think, you're not afraid to say it because you can back it up. But that takes time. When did that happen for me? I would say weirdly when I became a manager, then it really, when I was like 50 years old, then I became really comfortable with all this. Prior to that, within your own circle, you don't want to get way outside of that as you project your belief system. So I think you gradually grow into this to the point where you get confident in what you're saying, and you feel good about what you're saying. And it's like anybody else. Why does anybody else have a greater feel of what you're trying to describe or what you believe in right now than you do? They don't. So you have to eventually get to the point where you have enough self confidence. You've thought things through well enough that, yeah, you get to the point that this is my voice. This is what I believe. Here we go.
That's like perfectly said, because I remember when I would talk to you, and it's so weird. People would be like, "Well, you're going out there. We see you talking to Joe," and I was asking you about life questions, and you would say to me, "Well, how old are you now, Johnny?" And I said, "Well, I'm 46," and you're like, "Yeah, that's about it. That's when it starts happening."
Hmm.
And you're smiling because I
Yeah.
remember that like that. It just like it hit with me, and I'm like, I know the change I felt because I can't, I didn't want to hide anymore my insecurities. I didn't want to hide to people and try to have this ego. I want to get rid of the ego totally. And when I talk about that, I talk it in the sense with the book, The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. No ego. The ego is the mind, and the spirit or the inner being is what we truly feed off of. Ego is fear, and the inner being is pure love. And something we do all day long that none of us have to think about is breathing.
Hmm.
But once we start thinking about breathing, that's meditation, correct?
Yeah.
Once
I
we
mean,
start
that's,
being concentrated on our breathing, that's the basic base of meditation. Is that true?
yes, yes. And I tell you, when I stay with that, when I stay with my program with that, wow, what a difference.
Even when it's uncomfortable, you cannot escape the present moment, correct?
What
The
is not
present
an,
moment is uncomfortable. Even if the present moment, like now with COVID
yeah.
and everything, even if it's an uncomfortable moment, you still
Understood.
have to stay present, correct?
Oh yeah. Yes. To this point, that's not the focus of my day. My focus of the day is not to not get sick. The focus of the day is I've spent so much time on Zoom calls, talking to people, groups, people within the organization, players, coaches, whatever, my family, my kids, my wife. I'm here, I believe, in order to help other people see the way through this. So the only way for me to do that is to be grounded myself, to believe in what I believe in, so that I can then pass it along to somebody else. Because yeah, I don't wake up worried about this, what's going on. I believe it's going to pass. This too shall pass. I don't know exactly when, but it shall. In the meantime, we got to continue to do the right things, support one another, be there for one another, uh, do what you're supposed to do on a daily basis. Why get away from those patterns to stop and be paralyzed by thoughts? Doesn't help. There's been a lot of folks in our lives previous that have gone through a lot worse than what we're experiencing right now, a lot worse. So, relatively speaking, for me, it's we don't have the right to be that upset. We haven't lived through world wars. We haven't had to go to basic training, get on a boat, and then end up in a foreign land and have to tote a rifle. So, for me, just keep everything in perspective. Be there for everybody else. The more you put out there, the more will come back to you, and that's what I believe in. So that's the premise I've been working from.
And I love that because when this first came out, when COVID first started happening, I started, my OCD started watching it,
Mhm.
in January. And I'm like, oh my God, pandemic. And my OCD goes to the darkest places. I'm very vocal that I attempted suicide in 2018, and
Mhm.
I've had struggles in my life, and I was down, and until I learned, and I'm still not there yet, because when this pandemic first hit, I stayed inside for a good month. I did not go outside. I mean, I did not go outside. I would not leave my apartment, and I was petrified to go anywhere. I was washing my hands. The OCD that I had, where the hand washing and the germ stuff, left me. And then all of a sudden, when COVID came around, I was washing my hands 25, 30 times a day.
Wow.
And now I've been out a lot more. I've been wearing a mask, doing the right things when I
Mhm.
go sing, socially distant. But sometimes you still have these breaks where something can happen. And I just have to be peaceful with Johnny. What happens is going to happen. And all I can do is try my best. Because Coach Ditko always told me, Johnny, you can't control what happens to you, but you can control how you react to it.
Yeah.
And my reaction would always be over the top. My nervousness, my anxiety would just take a huge hold of me. And that's why, number one, obviously, you're Joe Maddon and people love you. And when I said this is going to happen, everybody got so excited. But number two is, most importantly, is, and I'm not blowing smoke up your ass, is the positivity that you gave me that really connected to me, because I get very sensitive. I get very uh, uh, my brain can really go down that dark path of just like, why? And then you have to grab on something that has hope. And I believe that that inner being in us that is so full of love, that when you have a wonderful conversation or you feel good with somebody and you're just saying something positive or picking that person up, it changes their life. And I noticed about you and other people that I feel this way, you guys don't say anything negative about anyone. You guys are always giving positivity. And when somebody does something well, I generally see in your eyes that smile. And I've seen it when you said it to fans, when they told you something. And I know a lot of famous people, they have things coming at them. And it's like, okay, okay, yeah, great. I hear you listening to people while was on the field, and you were giving 100% of your attention. And I genuinely felt the happiness you have for them. And that's what I wish we would all have, myself included, because there was a time when I first started singing, I was very insecure and jealous of other singers. Now I look at things in perspective, and it's like, I just got to be who I am and want everyone to succeed. And I know sometimes it's hard. We have our hard days, but how do you keep that constant mentality? Because I noticed when you would get mad, it was for your players. You stuck
Mhm.
up for your players. Other times, you just kind of took things in stride. I always saw.
And like I said, I kind of alluded to it earlier. Whatever you put out there comes back to you. The more you share, the more you get in return. And speaking specifically to what you had been addressing there, you've heard me talk about the process is fearless, and that's something that Kenny Reviza downstairs, he was in the kitchen. I brought it to his attention. He looked at me like he didn't quite glom onto it very quickly, which is unusual. But I said, no, the process is fearless because the process lacks emotion. The process is this set routine that we go through. And if you stay with that, you're not going to get those trepidation, those fearful factors, should I or shouldn't I concerns. That's what I meant by the process is fearless. It's lacks emotion. So if you could go through the day and just stick to the process, knowing that the result may not be perfect, but it's going to be probably a pretty good result. Some days better than others. But I got this game plan to work with that doesn't feel the emotion of the day. It's this method that I employ. So that's where I came up with the process is fearless. And I hear Coach K a lot of times talk with Duke, very process oriented. Coach Saban, very process oriented. Wow, I mean, I don't want to use the word easy, but whenever you become confused, um, what is my what was I how was I supposed to get through this moment? What was my plan going into this? What was my process? Man, if you could just hold on to that bad boy for a little bit, it puts you right back on track. Last point, what you said, uh, when it comes down to we don't really realize the influence we have on other people just by being us. But it's been pointed out to me just through different moments. So I absolutely understand when you say something to somebody, wow, the impact it could have on them. I'll get, like you said, a text, a little email, a voicemail, or just the fact that somebody checked in. Woof, that picks you up because we all have those moments. And then when you get like those days you're not certain, like, am I on the right track? And then all of a sudden, somebody like just like we were talking about right now, and your validation of how I do things, so I know I'm on the right path. So you don't even realize we don't even realize a lot of times the impact we're making on somebody else just by being yourself, and that to me is the most authentic and best way to do this.
And I know people feel that. People feel that, and I had that in me, but I hid that for many years because of being bullied.
Mhm.
I wanted to be somebody that didn't show any vulnerability. And then when I came out and I talked about my mental illness and I'm an advocate about it now, I just spoke with one of my friends, and he wants me to talk to somebody else about doing something about mental health awareness.
Mhm.
And the first time I came out and I spoke on social media about my struggles, I was very, very nervous to say it. And the
Mhm.
more I was able to talk about it, I realized it was real. And then all these people started coming out and talking about situations would they suffer from depression or a family member or people that they've lost to suicide. Um, and I think to myself, first thought is why is this not out there? Why are we not talking about it more? And then I realized within my own, family of the old way, the old from the old country in Italy, you didn't talk about your problems. You didn't say, "Oh no, you have obsessive what is obsessive compulsive order or depressed? Come on, snap out of it." I want people to understand that mental illness is just like diabetes or cancer or any disease that we can treat. And I think the first thing that we do is having that authenticity of being like you are. And if you're saying something that is truthful and from your heart, it is very impactful. And that's why I think you are so impactful. I knew it when I saw you at Tampa Bay, and then you come to the Cubs, and after 108 years, you bring us a World Series. And it's contagious to have that feeling. And I think some people, when they are not there yet, myself included, wanted to be that person, but I couldn't. But you, like when you said to me, Johnny, what age are you at? You are that person. And you said when you became manager, it really became that
Yeah, Uncle Louie's got a condition.
way. Uncle Louie's got a condition, right?
He's
Yeah,
got it's Uncle Louie's condition. That's why we just leave him alone.
right.
That's all it was. Everybody swept. We always swept our problems or our concerns under the rug.
But why?
Nobody ever talked because that's just the way it was back then. I mean, it was
It's just fair,
it,
right? It was fair.
it
Isn't it fair at the end?
oh, of course, it was fear, embarrassment. We can't really talk about these kind of things in public. It's embarrassing to the family. It's embarrassing to Uncle Louie. It's embarrassing
Yeah.
to whomever's involved. It was always it's an embarrassment. It's
Hmm.
uncomfortable, and it's easier to just sweep it and move on. And I think for years, I mean, a lot of the people we grew up with, who we love dearly, family members, aunts, uncles, whatever, mentors, a lot of sweeping under the rug at that
Yeah.
time, and that's probably what caused all of this to proliferate for such a long period of time, and still is so serious. The difference now is there's power in talking about it. There's power in getting it out, the proverbial getting it off your chest, putting it in somebody else's ears so that you could bounce it off them. There's such power in relieving yourself of that individual burden, because part of it is you think you're the only one that's like this. You're the only one that feels these things.
Right.
It's the farthest thing from the truth. And then
Yeah.
once you let it out, then you find your allies, and that's where the healing, I think, really starts to begin. So it's just when he's talking, I mean, I'm just thinking about he's got a condition, just leave him alone. And that's how we treated a lot of things that were uncomfortable back then. Whereas now it's way more prominent to get it out there, seeking help. And a lot of what we consider our issues, societally speaking, today is due to mental illness. And we have the homeless problem. And you and I, and you've been to our Thanksmasses, and we attend those. And just the fact that we have people, other human beings on the street at night, and it's like a city in Chicago with the weather being so extreme. I mean, it's just hard to wrap your mind around it. And this is the part of society I would like to see us spend a lot of time with too, is the mental health component, getting people off the streets.
Yes.
And it's such a nuanced, layered, complex issue. Every time we get to these moments in the wintertime where I have a chance to go to Metropolitan Ministries, say in Tampa, or the Catholic Charities or St. Leonard's in Chicago. Wow, it's so moving, it's so emotional, and it's just a drop in the bucket. You're doing this like one or a couple days out of the year when it's necessary every day. Oh man, there's so much involved there, and as a society, as if we were to help more there and get these people right, just literally, and it is actually starting at the bottom, working your way back up to the top. There'd be a lot of benefit to that we don't apply enough dollars to, because of course, getting back to ego, wherever you want to connect it with. And I would love to see us spend more time there in regards to fixing this, um, the homeless situation, feeding the homeless, getting them in training programs, getting them on their feet, getting them back into society. Um, that in and of itself would really create or help eliminate a lot of the issues that we have right now.
I have a conversation probably about two or three times a week with this woman who's homeless
Mm.
outside of my street, and it's very sad because when she speaks, she's extremely intelligent, and then we start talking, and she'll start saying things that I know are, she's suffering. Like if
Hmm.
it's there's these there's in the water. Don't drink the water here, John. It's going to change you. It's going to make you sick. That's why you're getting gray hairs. And she was drinking hand sanitizer. And I said to her, I said, you can't drink hand sanitizer. It's not for that. And she's like, no, this actually is going to help with this. And I was trying to have a conversation, and I knew I couldn't get to that point because it wasn't going to sink in, because she was trying to help me. She's trying to say, hey, no, do this too.
Yep.
But I know how it is to struggle, not to that extent, but from the age of 18 to the age of 40, I would say 44, 45, the person I hated the most in my life was myself.
Hmm.
And I hated myself. I didn't feel worthy. I had trouble looking myself in the mirror because I know when I was picked on, when I was bullied as a kid, I always felt like being an outsider. So then when I got really big, I grew 8 inches from junior to senior year, and then they told me, you come and play football. I had a lot of anger inside of me, and I didn't know how to get out of that mentality of poor me until I finally realized that, Johnny, the only thing that matters in life is empathy. our problems, at least in my case, started shedding off of me, because then I looked at people and I said, wait a minute, how does it feel? And that made me get this peace inside of me, because I've had a very blessed life. If I died today, I was very blessed. I've been a Cubs fan. I sang in the World Series. I became friends with Joe Maddon. I became friends with Mike Ditka, worked with him for 20 years. I got to meet my idol, Brett Favre, and become friends with Brett and all these other people. And in between, I've been very lucky. But most importantly, I'm lucky enough to feel this love, that connection that we all have. But I'm not to your level yet where I can stay present. I can do it in brief moments, but my OCD still gets the best of me.
Well, I mean, again, like I said, when I was, where are you at right now? 47, 40, how old?
I'll be 48 in a couple weeks.
Yeah, I'm telling you, man, I was no day at the beach right then. So don't put yourself down too hard right now. I had a lot of stuff going on at that point in my life. I went through a divorce. My dad passed away. There was a lot of stuff going on, man, and it piles up, and then you have a hard time making sense of everything. And yeah, you're that calm. It's hard to maintain that if you're not equipped yet to handle all that, and you haven't had enough life experience. It's hard to handle all that. So don't be hypercritical of yourself. You're going to see your way through it. You're going to come to some good conclusions. Part of it is because you've analyzed it so well that you're going to be able to move on. Something I had said earlier, I'm going to reemphasize one time. I mean, the phrase, whatever you put out there comes back to you. I think that's another way of talking about empathy. Briefly, I was passed over for a job with the Angels in the early 90s. I was ready to quit the California Angels at that time. Which is like an absurd thought. But I was that upset because they didn't take me to the big leagues as a coach. I'm ready to go. I had to have my mentor, Bob Clear, talk me out of leaving. So when season starts, I'm roving. I'm going to Midland, Texas, and I'm on an airplane, America West, from Phoenix to Midland. And bad day. I didn't want to be there. I was upset, which is really weird for me because I'm not like that. But we're flying somewhere over Tucson towards Albuquerque, and this lady sitting next to me, I did not want to speak. I didn't want to talk to anybody, but she wanted to talk. So we're going back and forth, and all of a sudden, I got my head down looking in the magazines in front of me. She said, "Hey, remember one thing: whatever you put out there will come back to you." I did one of these. Like, what? And she said it one more time. Wow, did that? I mean, this is like 30 years ago, and I'm telling you, like it was yesterday, the kind of an impact it had on me. Whenever I run into a little bit of trouble, I just think of that because that really kind of like fixes everything. Um, you go out and do something good for somebody else. Say something good to somebody else. Be there for somebody else. Have somebody's back. Wow, does that turn you around in a hurry? So from that day forward, whenever I'm struggling, and it happens. Remember, whatever I put out there, if I put a negative vibe out there, you're getting negative back. If I put something positive out there, I'm going to get positive. If you put abundance out there, that's what you're going to get back. It's pretty simple logic, and I tell you absolutely that it works.
Love just really, and I say this to people, it sounds so corny, but love does make you feel better. Like when you have unconditional love towards something, towards someone, like you said, if it's a text of getting something from somebody, if you send me a text, sometimes you'll send me a text when you send me a picture of the Queen Mary,
Right.
and everything, and I just smiled, and I'm looking at that, and I'm thinking, wow, this is Joe, now he's like my brother and all this stuff, but this is Joe Maddon that did this. He won the World Series with the Cubs. He did this, and it makes me again feel like, oh my God, that's such a special way that you just thought of me at that moment. And like, you're right, doing that change. It's that ripple effect, even if it's big or small. Correct?
It doesn't matter. Is there anything such thing as small? Is there any such thing as small?
No, no,
I
there's not.
mean, that's
No, because
there's
the Earth is small compared to the Milky Way, and then compared to the universe, which is 10 billion light years across. The known
yeah.
universe, everything is really small. Then, right?
When it comes to interaction, if it's sincere to me, there's no way to gauge if it's large or small. Sometimes if you lend somebody some money, all of a sudden they consider that big, but maybe that little quick text is considered small. but equally could be impactful. So for me, I don't measure large or small when it comes to the interaction or significant or not. It's an interaction, and I'm not looking to gain anything from it at all. But I do know by putting it out there, there's going to be some kind of an equal gratitude sent my way in return. Again, but that's not the lure for doing it. It's just I'm compelled to do it. Here it is, boom. But what always normally does occur, you're going to get something back, like I said, and it's just like the negativity. There's so much of that being planted, processed, thrown out there right now. Wow, and that's the part that I have a hard time with because I don't operate, I don't vibrate on that frequency. I don't understand how that even begins, and I am pragmatic. I do get it. I know. I know it's right. I know it's wrong. And I know when it comes down to some of this stuff, how you have to fight for your own turf. I get all that. Absolutely. But beyond that, man, I mean, the discourse that we have going on right now, and a lot of it, the way social media has, like something like this is wonderful. This method is great. But the social media, the ability to be hypercritical, criticize, be negative, and in a non-vetted method where things are just thrown out there without any concern about any kind of repercussion or accountability. Those are the kind of things that stop. We got to stop that stuff. I mean, it could be utilized in such a wonderful way, the social media concept, but for the most part, it's devolving to the point where it's becoming counterproductive.
So I see this hat you have on for my father because his name is Vince Pierorazio. So
That's
that
right.
I love that.
Did you
What
get
is
the
it? What?
back?
Wait, I don't see the back. You got to come closer. Oh, of stuff. VP of stuff. Love that.
You know who that is? You know
No.
very well. That's
Who?
Tim Buss.
Oh, Bussy. Oh
Bussy, I have
man.
declared as he came to the Angels as the quality assurance coach, and that doesn't nearly satisfy the number of hats that he does wear and the number of different things that he
That's a
does.
guy who was always smiling and always positive and always everything. If you
Brother,
come
he's the
see
glue
him,
already here. He's the glue. Ask any player in this
oh,
organization
there's
what they
just
think.
something about that man that makes you feel good. When I would see him warming up the team and get everything before the game, he just is smiling. He's like, "Hey, Big John, we're coming to take this." It was just always positivity with Bussy.
Who gives more than him without expecting anything in return? Who do you know that gives more than he does of himself? A lot of it has to do with the humor, but
Yeah.
I'm here to tell you, as vice president of stuff, he has been invaluable to us during this time here. Ask any player,
Oh,
ask any staff member, ask myself what he's already done. See, Bussy's been pigeonholed as a strength and conditioning guy. He's so much more than that. He's so much more than that. And now he's been able to spread his wings and the impact he's made. So I had these made VP of stuff,
VP of
a
stuff.
variety
I
of
love
hats,
that.
and then the sweatshirt too. So when the guys show up, when this spring training, I had them done. I was going to pass them out in spring training 1.0. That didn't conclude. So now when they show up for this 2.0, they're all going to get their VP of stuff hats
That's awesome.
with a sweatshirt hoodie with Bussy's likeness. And on the hoodie, he's going to be presenting the lineup card at Sloan Park this spring training, and
Oh,
with this T-shirt on that says "grind," the word "grind" on it. It cannot be more perfect.
oh, that's awesome.
Yes,
You
that's
got
what we're
to
doing.
tell him. I got to text him and say hello to him. You got to tell him I love him.
I shall.
I love that. I love that story. I know you're. I'm sure excited about the season, getting ready to go. We need that. I think we just that happiness and that seeing baseball during the summer. But I wanted to end it with one of my most peaceful moments in my life. I remember them clearly if they're with family and friends. But one was when I woke up, I was at your house, and you, Jay, and myself sat in the kitchen. We had coffee. You made some really good French press coffee. Then we went in the backyard and talked. And after I left, we had the dog, we had the cat there. It was just awesome. It was just like, I love animals because they live in the present moment.
Oh
Like
yeah.
they live in the present. There's just love, there's
Yep.
just love there. They're happy. When you leave the house 5 seconds later, the dog's it's wagging its tail. You're back. Where did you go?
Right.
It's like, it's just pure love. But I drove because I had a show the next night or later that week on the East Coast of Florida. And I just had such a peaceful feeling of talking with you and Jay and just the kindness. After we sang that night, we had a beautiful party. We talked that night and we talked again that morning. And I just want to say thank you for everything you've done for me, everything you've given to me. I'm telling you, I think about you a lot. It means so much to me. It brings a calmness because when you don't have total belief in yourself like I do, I do at times. I do at times, and I said, Johnny, you're strong. You can do this. You can get through this. You'll get through it. And I'm okay. I'm blessed. I'm happy. But when you have somebody say it and it's impactful as you, and Jay has that same mentality, it's just that calmness that makes you feel good, and it's just that pure joy and love. It changes people's lives, and that's what I hope this podcast does, and that's why I started it with you. And I'm grateful for you to take your time out, being so busy and doing this. I love you.
Johnny, that's very kind. You have also given so much back to us, me and Jay. You were talking about me managing in the World Series. How about you singing like you did? I mean,
I
you have to
almost fainted.
understand,
I was so afraid at singing
we
the
are
World
equally
Series.
impressed watching you do what you do that we can't do. That's the whole thing. You have a skill set that I don't even come close to. Maybe I have somewhat of a skill set that is not your bailiwick, but you got something, brother, that lasts a lifetime. What you're able to do, and the joy that you bring to so many different people, and how much you're in demand these days. That speaks to your skill, your abilities, but also you. I mean, people like having you around. Also, ask Coach Ditka. Coach, gives you a hard time, which I love watching, but and listening to. But we all appreciate you, and you have to understand that too. So as you so graciously are talking about what Jay and I have done for you, you have done for us. Who else do we want to be there for that particular event that night but you? So there's a lot of folks in your life that feel that way about you, and very fortunate that you're part of our group. So I don't know if you hear that enough, but it's true. Again, I appreciate this opportunity to be
Oh,
with you
you're
here
too
today.
kind.
I'm going to jump out in my van right after this and drive
Oh,
around Long Beach a little bit. I got
I
some
wish I
errands
could
to
be
do.
there with you. I
It's
really wish I
awesome,
could be
brother.
there
It's
with
awesome. But no,
you.
seriously, this is great. I wish you nothing but the best and success with this. I'm sure you're going to knock it out of the park.
Thank you. Fratello, which means to the people out there listening, which this will air at a later date, which means brother in Italian. Fratello, I love you. Please say hi to Jay. I thank you for everything. You mean more than you know. You are a mentor to me and somebody very special in my life. Very, very special. Will always be. And I'm grateful. I love you. Thank you.
We love you too, brother. Be well, best to your family,
Thank
and
you.
hopefully we'll get to see you. I won't see you. I don't know if I'm going to see you this summer, but maybe this winter, if things settle down, we'll get back together at an event somewhere.
Yes,
Be well,
sure.
okay? You be well.
Yes, sir. You
All
too. Thank you. And give
right,
Jay a
buddy.
big hug for me. Thank you
I
so
shall.
much.
I shall. Thank
I
you, buddy.
love you. Bye bye.
Love you too. Bye bye.